Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Leadership Speak series at L Forum. It's my honor and privilege to welcome a very close friend of mine, the Chief Sherpa of Finsherpa, Babu Krishnamoorthy. Hi, Babu. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Ringo. Always a pleasure.
Yes, it's been almost 3 decades of association and friendship. So I am very excited, and I'm sure all my listeners are, to hear your story and your journey so far as the Chief Sherpa of Finsherpa. So over to you, Babu. Tell us your journey so far.
Thank you, Ringo. We go a long way. We go right from the college days. Of course, we lost in touch in between, and I did, as you are aware, I did college at Viveka, I did graduation, and I was in hostel where we met. Subsequently, I did my CA, 3 years. I took a extra year to lay my foundation very strong. So completed my CA then. But once I completed CA, I realized that accounting wasn't something that I kind of really truly caught my passion. So I decided to turn into investment banking. So that was my first foray. I spent 2 years working for an investment bank, a small boutique investment bank called MA Capital Market Services based out of Chennai, those days called Madras. And the Mark Capital Market Services was run by a very mercurial man called K. Gopalakrishnan. We used to call him KGK. And KGK was somehow the first guy really I worked for. He was very mercurial. He was very full of energy, full of passion, running multiple businesses and so on and so forth. Looking at him and watching him, I really got my first insights on entrepreneurship. And, probably I'd kind of rate him as one of my inspirations to get started. So 2 years I worked with Mark Capital, and then with a colleague of mine stepped out to start a firm called Pelican the Bird. And in those days, a lot of investment banks used to kind of name themselves after birds. There used to be another big firm called Peregrine in those days.
Yes, I've heard of that. I've heard of the Peregrine.
So
yes.
We decided that birds are the inspiration for investment bankers. So we named ourselves Pelican.
Awesome.
Really, there wasn't much thought behind, my first entrepreneurial venture, except for the fact that, we enjoyed it. And in some sense, I also got my dad to kind of encourage me, so to say. And I realized on the hindsight that maybe in his younger days, he may have wanted to be an entrepreneur and never got that opportunity. So when I kind of decided to throw my hat in entrepreneurship, he kind of really backed me up. And it's very important when your family decides to come behind you and encourage you, especially when you're starting that journey. And I'm talking about 25 years ago. So it's those days, from a traditional Tambram family, you always considered that you would go for a job, right? I mean, secure yourself financially, get a job kind of stuff. Here, my dad was saying, go forth and, do your stuff. At best, if you don't bring the money, we still have food on the table. So that gave me a great amount of confidence. So we started out as a boutique investment bank initially and worked our way through. And some point in time, we moved to wealth management in the late 1990s and 2000. That was really the early years when private investments were just getting started, and the wealth management industry was, taking baby steps, and we were kind of there. Happened because a client of us, we had got them an exit and they wanted us to manage the money. And that's how we kind of accidentally. So my journey has been a bunch of accidents, Ringo, moving into entrepreneurship. I won't say, I consciously thought it through and went there. But, looking back, if I connect the dots, lots of small accidents and, kind of made us go that way. So wealth management from 2000, pretty much over the last 2 decades, I've been in that space. Our initial foray was fantastic. We had a fantastic journey. The industry was just getting started. So from 2000 to 2007, 8, we had a kind of mercurial growth. So from one office, 2 people, to having 60 people on board with 3 offices: Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad. Pelican Wealth was the name of the firm, and we kind of there was no stopping. And until the Lehman Brother incident happened, and kind of the whole cookie crumbled, so to say, and we were part of that. To cut a long story short, we had raised some capital just before that to foray into an insurance broking venture. A lot of that got undone because of the global financial crisis, and ended up that we had to provide exit for our investors. So 2012, I sold Pelican Wealth to another investment bank based out of Bangalore. And as part of the deal, I continued as the head of wealth in Allegro Capital for another 4 years. Since 2016, I got out to restart my entrepreneurial journey. And that's where Finsherpa came in. And I kind of decided to bootstrap this time. No more raising capital, just be doing it with your own resources. So Finsherpa Investments Private Limited is a bootstrap venture. I'm the, me and my wife are the investors there.
We have a small team. Chief Sherpa there.
Chief Sherpa there, yeah.
So you decided to digress from birds and started going into guiding and shepherding now.
Yeah, so there's an interesting story there too. So in 2010, a friend of mine and me, we went to the Himalayas on a trek. And there we discovered, we didn't do the, base camp climb, but we did a regular trek in the Uttarakhand, a very easy trek, so to say. But the trek gave me a lot of peace and learning, and it allowed me to kind of, expand my mind. In the solitude is where you can think a lot. So in that journey, we had helpers who were basically Sherpas, and these guys were just amazing. They literally took your load, stopped short of carrying you up, right? Literally, they did that job, and I was pretty impressed with them. And I said, at some point in time, I'm going to use the Sherpa. The Sherpa is actually a guide, somebody who helps you climb your mountain. So I said, since I'm also in the journey of helping people manage their money and helping them reach their financial peak, I said, let me call myself the financial Sherpa. So that's how the name came.
It's very inspirational, Babu, because I think in the world that we live in, and Sherpas are legendary, right? Including, I think, Tenzing is a Sherpa himself. So.
Absolutely.
So I think it exudes a lot of comfort and a lot of confidence in what you say. Great, love that name.
So that's been the journey, Ringo. Right now, 5 years of Finsherpa. We're doing reasonably well. We have a large roadmap ahead of us, and that's what keeps us excited, jumping out of the bed every other day and moving forward.
So in this exciting journey that you had, you've seen highs and lows, frankly, Babu, and you've seen, heady highs and, not so fun lows as well. I'm sure there was learnings there. What has been your learning in the last 3 decades on leadership? What do you think leadership is all about?
I often tell, today entrepreneurship or leadership is kind of bandied. Everybody wants to be called an entrepreneur and a leader, right? But, literally as a leader, you're defined only when things go the wrong way, right? When literally, to use the term, when shit hits the roof, how are you going to behave is what defines the leader. So when things are going well, I don't think your leadership is tested. But when things go wrong is where you're really tested on being a leader. And as an entrepreneur, I believe you have to take the good and the bad without emotions, without kind of, playing the victim, so to say, right? You can't say, as an entrepreneur, I only want the positives. I don't want to feast this. So that's a key feature, and you've got to enjoy that journey. I've gone through pain, but not for a minute have I kind of said, why me? Just when things are going well, when you say it's all because of me, when things go wrong, you've got to be able to look in the mirror and say, how do I fix this, right? So that's an important part, I believe, of entrepreneurship, and taking responsibility, and you are the last man standing, so to say. Second, I think as an entrepreneur, you've got to constantly keep giving vision to your team. People around you will act according to the vision that you see for yourself and the organization. And that's extremely important as an entrepreneur, to think long term, to give that vision, to kind of exude that vision to people. And I think that's a great role. The leader that does that the best gets the best team working for him. And that's an extremely important aspect of. And third, I think, is the most important learning for me is you've got to walk the talk, right? You can't kind of be a leader, especially in today's day and age. There's no point in telling people what they need to do. You've got to be there and demonstrate, and you've got to take that lead and show. And people will definitely follow, but you've got to do, and you've got to do that difficult stuff. These are the three big learnings that I've had in these long decades, but I think I've enjoyed every little bit of it, the good and the bad, believe me.
Excellent, excellent. In fact, you're right, Babu. In fact, I always keep joking that one of my hypotheses, and one day hopefully I'll write a little paper around it, is seemingly bad events always have positive outcomes. So I think this is one of my. Let's see if I can prove it someday.
Always, and I always believe that either you have a earning or a learning, and sometimes the learnings are much more valuable than the earnings.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. So, Babu, you are a very unique kind of a leader where I don't think you ever took up a corporate role per se, other than this brief stint at Allegro when you said you took up a corporate role. So, you are at some level an entrepreneurial leader. You've been a leader and you learn your leadership being an entrepreneur. Uh, these are some of the learnings as a leader. So, what has been your learning more, or what is your view on being an entrepreneurial leader? Is there a different nuance? Is it different from regular leadership? Do you think entrepreneurial leadership is any different?
See, my view of an entrepreneurial leader is that as compared to a corporate leader, so to say, entrepreneurial leaders need a couple of traits that are a little different, right? A corporate leader is as entrepreneurial, believe me, but there is still a safety net within which they operate. An entrepreneurial leader has no safety net on the lower end. So he is like I said, his risks are very, very large. His or her risk is very large. On the same side, I've often found that entrepreneurial leaders are people who, like they say, take that big dream, right? They can take that transformational dream. Whereas in a corporate setup, I've often found that leaders tend to take very incremental steps because they are answerable to many people, and many people will not believe that big jump. Whereas as an entrepreneurial leader, you are not answerable to anybody. So you can have that ridiculously audacious ideas and pursue them stupidly, and sometimes they do come true. Absolutely. So that's where I think entrepreneurial leaders sometimes make that big jump in many cases, right? So you name it in the business world, Jeff Bezos to some of those guys, sitting out of a garage, imagined the future that they currently are. And in a corporate setup, I find that would be a little difficult. So entrepreneurial leaders are people who have the gigantic dreams when they still have no resources and no vision or no route for it. But the dream itself presents a route at some point in time, and they just follow through on that and make it big.
Excellent. In fact, I keep telling my little group that I said I've heard this business school term of the BHAG, the big hairy audacious goals, right? In marketing, they talk about it all the time. I guess as an entrepreneur, if you don't dream that, you're not going to go anywhere. I mean, and sometimes you don't even know how you're going to get there. I mean, like it's like your classic case of you see the peak in the Himalayas. You know it's possible, but you don't know how. You know you want to do this, but you don't know how. So you'll make many mistakes. And to your point, you stumble, you fall, like, and you realize, okay, this is the route I cannot take. So I got to find something else. As long as I'm standing, I'm going to keep trying. And that never give up attitude, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. You keep moving every single day forward, and every day, as long as you're moving, you may stumble, you may fall, you get up, you keep moving forward. You know that you're heading closer and closer to the goal that you want to reach, right? So I think that's the story. It is to be relentless, so to say, in your approach. There are good mornings, there are bad mornings. As entrepreneurs, every entrepreneur has those great days and those horrible days. But as long as you can kind of remember what is the journey you're choosing and what's the destination you're looking at, and that kind of keeps you motivated and driven, you will keep at it.
I couldn't agree more. So, coming to a very interesting area, and you just kind of touched upon it in your previous little answers to my question. Uh, what have been your biggest challenges as an entrepreneurial leader?
Uh, so couple of lots of challenges. I mean, we're all not perfect. I've realized as we age that there are far more imperfections than perfections that we have. Good things, but uh, the wisdom has also taught us how to kind of overcome or live with those imperfections, right? So being an entrepreneur, one of the things, I told you my journey at Pelican, went through a rough patch before I got acquired by another company. So through that journey, I had learned to be very frugal about the way I kind of ran my business. Ever since that point, I've always been challenged to, when you're frugal on one side, it's very difficult to be frugal on one side and be audacious on the other end, right? These two things don't go very well. So I can't be frugal on certain things and be audacious on a bunch of other things, right? So there has been a challenge in managing these two aspects, and these two are two extremes of the picture. So this has been one challenge that I've had to contend with. Ever since, at the back of my mind, there is this issue that my earlier venture didn't go the way it ought to have gone. So we shouldn't be making that same mistake, and we shouldn't burn money, so on and so forth. But on the other end, you also need to kind of think big, dream big, so on and so forth. So this has been a bit of a challenge, absolutely. So this is one thing which I kind of constantly, kind of uh, think about these two sides. The other thing about my own aspect is that I continue to believe that people are the most important resource in today's, venture, any venture for that matter. And getting the right people and, kind of enabling them to be like another entrepreneur is a big, big challenge. And one of the things that all entrepreneurs make the mistake, and I too do very often, is we love to find people like us. So the organization is, in some sense, does not have too many people who think very differently from the way we think. And that has been, to a certain extent, something that I've struggled with. Getting people who think very differently from what I think, and then kind of having them as passionate about I am about the business and working along with them has been a challenge. I've realized this, so I'm working at overcoming this, but it's been a challenge, absolutely.
And I can resonate with that in my own experience because it's like you're running a ship, and you want everyone to be aligned in the same direction. So if you have someone ask you to take another direction unless you're sure, like you said, you have frugal resources. And if you head in a certain direction because of the exuberance and excitement of another person, you are scared that what if the whole ship sinks? So it's a challenge I struggle with all the time. And I too try and play safe and find people with a similar value system or similar mindset. You're right. It's a big challenge. Very, very well articulated on that. My last question for our little talk today, Babu, is what is your advice for folks wanting to step into entrepreneurship, young leaders? What would your advice be to them?
Uh, so, a couple of things, many entrepreneurs that I meet along the journey, I often find that the reason why they're getting into entrepreneurship is for the money. And that I find to be a very shallow, reason to be an entrepreneur. Today, if you ask me, if you do a good job, corporates pay far more, and you have the safety net as well. So that's a great place to actually be. And if you get ESOPs and so on and so forth, I'm sure in a couple of years, you will be even more richer. So entrepreneurship, in my mind, should not be for chasing a very shallow goalpost of just money. I'm not saying money is not important. I certainly believe money is greatly important. I am a financial Sherpa at the end of the day, right? So I do believe money is extremely important. But I think the purpose is more important, because the reason I will tell you is that there will be days when there will not be money on the table, right? If money is the sole and only purpose why you want to become an entrepreneur, the days when there is no money on the table, you will find it difficult to run. Whereas if there's a larger purpose that you're chasing, and there will be horrible days and there will be days when there is no money on the table, you will still find that that purpose will keep you going, right? And eventually there will be money at the end, right? If we all do, if we are, as entrepreneurs, I believe we are there to solve a problem. And when we solve the problem reasonably well for a reasonably large number of people, I am sure there is a pot of gold at the end of the day for all of us. But you've got to be passionate about solving that problem. And you've got to be passionate about solving that problem for a large number of people. There is a pot of gold. Believe you me, there is a pot of gold at the end. So that would be my single point advice to most entrepreneurs.
Excellent. I mean, I'm telling you, this is straight from my heart too, because if you don't, and I've had some of the other speakers in my series, in people who've much more senior to us, much more successful than you and I, and they also harp on the word purpose. Because if you don't have a sense of purpose as to why you're doing something, everything else kind of looks flimsy after that. You're right. If it's a transient purpose and it's a moving target. So, yeah, very well articulated. And thank you, Babu, for your, you know, uh, inputs and your views. I am going to thoroughly enjoy just sitting and listening to this recording again, personally for sentimental reasons. And I think you make really good points. And I hope all our, folks on the L Forum series also benefit by this conversation. So thank you so much, and I wish you and Finsherpa all success. And hoping to catch up with you when I'm in Chennai next.
Thank you so much. Loved chatting up with you, and wishing you the best as well. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, Babu. Have a great day.